Hey guys, welcome back to ARTV Rogue. My name is John, and it's time for a quick cut review of the new Pinegrove album. They're an alternative country, emo, and indie band. They've always done a nice job at fusing genres, and I like that there was a bit more of a twang without the dialect and the subject matter that you typically get associated with twang. And Pinegrove, I think, have had a very strong bounce back, both professionally and personally, and this new album, 1111, definitely feels like a celebration in some ways. And I love the album title. 1111 is a powerful number, and if you haven't looked into it a ton, I don't know how much I necessarily believe in it, but I do believe in manifesting powerful energy, positive energy with seeing something and just having a sign sent to you. And it feels like Evan Stevens Hall has definitely had a bit of that in his life. And this album, really for the first time, steps outside of the boundaries of personal conflict and takes on a bit more of a political perspective. Not entirely, of course, because there's tracks like Let that really dive head on into personal issues and also talk about victory laps of sorts, just overcoming even in the face of the coronavirus, of COVID-19, a pandemic that has seemingly derailed everyone. He talked about how he had already been in a certain type of mood when COVID hit, and now he's starting to see things differently. And this album definitely has the winds of change in the air. It's just that I don't know if they necessarily capitalize on all their biggest strengths. Whereas in the past, I feel like albums like Cardinal and even up through Marigold, which really got me into this band. My fiance is a big fan of them. She had been listening to a lot of their music. I really connected with Marigold in the height of the pandemic. It came out just before COVID hit in January 2020. That album definitely means a lot to me, and I've gone back and have really enjoyed every project to date. And it's not that this one is necessarily different from that, it's just that I feel a bit of a disconnect. Like some of the songwriting and some of the flow of the album doesn't really make sense. For example, the opening track here, Habitat, which was put out as one of the singles, I didn't know this was going to be the opener for the album, and as a result of that, it feels a little backwards, as if Habitat should have been the closer, and the actual closing track, 11th Hour, which just sort of abruptly ends and kills the album's momentum right around the 40-minute mark. It seems like maybe those could have been flipped, and maybe that was an intentional artistic choice, but it didn't do a ton for me, and the album just really gets off to a slow start. It's not that Habitat is bad, but it represents the underlying problem with this album, and it's that there is a bit of a disjointed nature to the track listing. And we can go upbeat for almost a punkier angle on the incredible Alaska that lasts for just over 2 minutes. Definitely one of my favorite tracks, if not the best, on the entire album. And we get momentum soaring again, even with something like Orange. Again, another pre-release single that definitely has a lot of impact. You can tell that Evan put heart behind what he was saying there with the political tinge to the track overall. And I appreciate other cuts like Swimming for the fact that they feel abstract, but they also have a focus to them. And even something like Flora, which definitely does open up more of like a Nashville sound, and Let that cuts and definitely has a biting hook to it that gets embedded in your head almost immediately. This album definitely is not without its solid moments, but it's their most inconsistent to date. I do feel slightly let down by it, and it's not necessarily that there's one or two or even three tracks that just stand out as bad. I just feel like there's more forgettable material on the LP, and as a result of that, 1111 definitely disappointed me, at least to a small degree, if not a bigger one. I'm going to rate this album a 3 out of 5, and I do feel that it's probably their weakest to date, but for a solid-ass band like Pinegrove, that's not saying a ton, because it is still very much enjoyable, and if you're a fan of the band, you probably can't go too wrong.